She first heard it while she was making coffee. The morning was already off to a rough start. Rachel had woken up, lazy and languid in the wake of her twice-snoozed alarm, and reached for her husband's side of the bed. Much to her disgruntlement, the spot where he should have been was empty and cold. She glared at the empty space for a moment, then promptly snoozed her alarm again out of spite. One of the downsides of working from home was she missed out on good morning kisses as Mark got ready for his morning commute. The upside, however, was she could take a few extra minutes to pout about it. Once her alarm declared her brooding time over, Rachel sighed, put the alarm to rest for good, and pulled herself out of bed. She immediately had the urge to crawl back into it. The air beyond her cozy covers was chilly with mid-October refusal to turn on the heater until absolutely necessary. Even worse, as soon as she was upright, she was reminded of every little discomfort that came with having an adult human body. Back pain, ankle pain, jaw pain from sleeping strangely, and a bonus ache in her joints from the cold. Oh, and after a few moments upright, she also needed to pee. All the usuals checked off. After a brief stop by the bathroom, Rachel shambled her way into the kitchen like the zombie she sometimes suspected herself to be. Undead or not, she still had bills to pay, meaning she needed to be alert enough to do her job. A strong, hot cup of coffee was in order. She made her way to the coffee machine and fell into familiar routine, seeking her prize almost on muscle memory. She got a mug from the cabinet. She set it beneath the machine's dispenser. She opened the machine's lid. Something began to buzz. She reached into the cabinet again. She retrieved an off-brand K-cup. The buzzing grew louder. She put the cup in the coffee maker. She closed the lid. The crunch felt violent. She selected ADOS on the little touchscreen. The buzzing became a drone. She pressed the button beneath the touchscreen. The machine began to whir. She could barely hear it over the droning. The floor creaked behind her. Something was watching her. Something was watching her. The world snapped back into uncomfortable clarity as she whirled around, nearly knocking a jar of sugar to the floor in the process. There was nothing behind her, of course. She was alone in her apartment. Mark had left for work before she'd woken up, and a quick glance to the right confirmed the door had been locked behind him. He even remembered to lock the deadbolt that morning. No one was there, the only sounds to be heard being the coffee maker steaming and the pounding of Rachel's heartbeat. No buzz, no drone. Rachel took a deep breath, then leaned back against the counter with a groan. Shaking off the adrenaline, she opened the fridge to grab some creamer and poured a generous amount into her cup. As she stirred her coffee, she reached for the pill container next to the kitchen sink. What better way to christen a fresh cup of coffee than by using it to wash down an unassuming little capsule? Not that she needed the coffee anymore. After whatever the hell that was, she was plenty awake. Coffee in hand regardless, she crossed the apartment to settle into her office and get to work. Over 6 months in, and her job still felt too good to be true. She'd managed to land a remote biller position for a telehealth practice. Medical billing was a notorious nightmare of paperwork, but that made it perfect for Rachel. Translating rejection errors, filling in boxes, deciphering ERAS. That scratched a mental itch she hadn't realized she had. And the best part, through the whole process, she hardly had to speak to a single soul. She could put on some music, bury her head in paperwork, and not worry about the world beyond her office for hours. Speaking of paperwork, signing into the practice EHR revealed several bright red claim rejections waiting to be reviewed. They were all from the same insurance company, and all related to the same clinician, so Rachel's first guess was an NPI-related issue. That puzzle led her to another, and soon enough, she found herself easing into the natural flow of work. She deciphered the error message. She emailed the clinician. She opened the next batch of rejections. She ignored the drone. She turned up her music. She pulled up a patient profile. She selected the billable dates of service. The droning overpowered her music. She double-checked the payer address. She finished the intimidating red form. Her jaw still ached. She submitted the claim. It was so loud. She opened another ERA. The drone was right behind her. It was in her lungs. She couldn't breathe. Her monitor suddenly shut off. She stared into her reflection. Something else stared back. Rachel pushed herself away from the desk with a gasp, nearly knocking over her chair in the process. She shivered and blinked at her computer screen, still on, lit with the awkward tables and blocks of text of insurance paperwork. She turned her head to look to the left of the screen at her office window. The glare from the still rising sun provided her a decent view of her reflection, normal and familiar. It hadn't been real. Rachel was safe alone. Still, she turned around and double-checked that her office door was closed before she slid her chair back into place just to be safe. Just for her own foolish reassurance. The workday continued. She got back into a rhythm, forcing herself to focus even when she started to hear that drone again. It wasn't real after all. It was just a trick, her brain playing games with her in retaliation for too little rest. Lunch rolled around at noon like usual, but the memory of that morning made Rachel hesitate. She had to leave her office to get her lunch from the fridge. Why did that make her nervous? Even if the drone came back while she was in the kitchen, it couldn't hurt her. It wasn't real. She gave the coffee machine a wide berth anyway, taking the long way around the kitchen island to get to the fridge and scolding herself for being stupid the entire time. And for apparently leaving the creamer sitting out, she realized. God, what was with her that morning? Why was she having such a strange day? She shook her head at herself, then set the likely spoiled creamer by the sink to dump out later. She would deal with that mess after she had tucked into some leftover pasta. She opened the fridge. She picked up a plastic container. She opened the lid. Her hands were so cold. She put the container in the microwave. She pressed the one button. Her hands were shaking. The microwave turned on. The hum sounded off. The container began to spin. The hum wasn't coming from the microwave. Rachel turned around. The drone was in the office. The container kept spinning. The drone came closer to the door. Rachel was in danger. She could feel the droning in her bones. She couldn't move. There was nowhere to run. The microwave beeped and Rachel yelped, jumping in place and tears stinging the corners of her eyes. She started shaking, wrapping her arms around herself. There was nothing to be afraid of, and yet for some bizarre reason, Rachel felt as if she was being hunted by something. What exactly she couldn't articulate, which just made her fear more frustratingly irrational. She was a grown woman. Couldn't she handle a few weird sounds scattered across her day?